So we have Eoin Cadogan here, recently retired, dual star from the Cork Football and Hurling setup. I'm going to ask you a few questions here this morning. I'd be very interested as a dual player. What is the difference? What's the dynamic you see and the kind of stumbling blocks for young lads to actually play both codes?
Dual status at club level has now even become difficult because in Cork, if you take our league, it's week on week. So hurling football for 18 weeks.
Yeah.
I think that's sustainable when you're 18, 19, 20 years of age, but when you're 36, 37 and you go into the 30s, body starts to creak. I'm not so sure how sustainable it even is at club level. Each year that I watch hurling football, it's like watching a different sport. It's like athletes getting faster, they're getting stronger, they're committing to more time analysing teams, getting better in the gym. It's absolutely not sustainable to be a dual player at intercounty level at the moment. If you're not committing wholeheartedly to hurling, I think your skill level is left down when it comes to the crunch.
Which would you prefer? Which sport do you prefer playing? As in training, playing games, the skill level. Is it hurling or is it football? Is it more enjoyable for you to prepare for a football game versus a hurling game?
Well, I love playing hurling, first off. Growing up, hurling was my number one love. The guys that I mentioned, your Sean Oggs, your Brian Corcorans, they were my heroes. I wasn't that good at football. Like I never played under 12, under 14, 15, 16 with my club. In football, I actually hated it. Okay. I went home numerous times and asked my parents to jack the football because I just didn't feel like I didn't enjoy it. I didn't bring any value to the team. And then, like a typical teenager, growth spurt came. Yeah. Where did I get thrown in? I certainly didn't get put in as a half forward like you, in full back. Exactly. And I suppose the way I played football was very different to the type of football that you were. You know, you were expressive, you were forward, you were scoring, whereas mine was stopping. A more negative approach to it.
There's a skill to that too.
There is a skill to it, but again, the mindset is very different in terms of like expression.
Okay.
As I got a little bit older and a little bit more comfortable with myself, I did express myself a little bit more. Not to the same level that you would have had, but again, I wasn't afraid to make those mistakes. Like I played an All-Ireland final in 2010. I think I kicked the ball once, Right, okay. As a defender, did I do my job? Certainly did. Came out the right side of not winning an All-Ireland, but again, it's completely different realms in terms of your approach to it. From a football perspective, we had a brilliant group under 21. There was probably about 8 or 9 of those guys came into the senior football squad in 2007, 8 and 9. And I think the likes of Coonahan really gelled the younger guys with the senior guys and brought the energy.
I see absolute similarities to the teams, like the winning teams that I was on, to what you just said there. And it's having a core group of senior guys who really know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they're really invested in the guys that are coming in to help them through. And I think we didn't have that initially with Dublin, but I think when Pat Gilroy came in, he could see where I saw the growth of Dublin football, and it was always looking at the youth. And I think that's where Dublin got it right 20 years ago. They didn't look at the senior team and say, right, we need to win all Irelands. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to pump all our time and effort into the top team. They didn't. They went and got the structures right at underage level, and then we seen the fruition that coming through. The Conor Callaghans, the Cormac Costellos, these guys coming through. Well, yeah, I suppose you were lucky enough to have success in 2010 with Cork. I didn't play with Dublin that year. But you might tell us about the journey that you went on that year and what it was like for a young lad to win his first major medal, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you know what? After being beaten in 2009 against Kerry in the All-Ireland final, the management called a meeting the Monday morning early in the Burlington Hotel. Now you can imagine after being beaten again another All-Ireland final.
Up a few lads, I say that was tough Monday morning.
It was a big call, really, in the sense that before we got on a bus or a train, he pulled us all together. Fellas were out late. They're pretty down. They're pretty low. And he made an unbelievable promise to us that if we got back on our horse and committed again, that we'd be back here as All-Ireland champions the following year. No, it was a ballsy thing to say, after 12 hours previously being beaten again in another All-Ireland final. But it just, as strange as this sounds, it actually parked what had happened on the Sunday, and fellas were saying, can't wait to get back training. can't wait for the pre-season, which might sound crazy, but when you haven't won in All-Ireland or you've been beaten again, that hunger is still there.
Yeah.
That year 2010 was brilliant in the sense that we got a roll. That game in the All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin was probably the best atmosphere I've ever been a part of.
Okay.
I came on at half-time marking Eoin O'Gara that day, and the noise from the Hill 16, it was like a vibration in my eardrums. It was incredible. And to get over the line the way we did, Donald O'Connor hitting a penalty, it just galvanised our group together. Like, we were back where we said we wanted to be.
Yeah.
The All-Ireland final wasn't pretty, like, against Down, like, 15-16, but what a release, like, to win that, like.
But would you, as a player, have swapped that Football Ireland for a Hurling All-Ireland? Knowing that for hurling was your first love, I suppose, as a kid growing up, would you have swapped that situation? It's very hard to say, I know.
No, I wouldn't have swapped. Like, it'd be disingenuous to say, I'd swap my football for hurling. When I know and I've seen firsthand what goes into winning an All-Ireland, in Cork, being a dual county, we've only 7 All-Ireland titles, I think, in the history of the GA in football.
Yeah.
My dad said to me before, he says, there's 7 teams in Cork who have All-Ireland medals, and he says, you're lucky enough to be able to walk down Patrick Street and say you have one of those medals. And there's very few men can say that in Cork, and I don't really talk about the medal. I talk about the semi-finals, the training camps, the hardship after the final in 9, hardship after 7. And like, we would have a fierce collective bond, that 2010 team. We meet up every year socially. There isn't a year gone by where we haven't met.
When you stop playing in the county, you're not going to see the guys 3 or 4 nights a week every week again, right? So you probably won't see them maybe once, twice in a year. But then once or twice in a year,
when you meet,
it's like you've never been apart. That's how it is. It's like a real old friend, because you've went through all the tough stuff. You've won with each other. You've felt most emotions with each other. You probably fought with a few and fought for a few, and that's, I suppose, that's the essence of the GAA, and it's that friendship, isn't it? Like, it's
a family.
It's to pick up the phone when the chips are down, and there's going to be someone at the end of it. That way, and that for me is what that Dublin group is about. That way, and that's, I suppose, that's what you're just in essence talking about with your group.
I think that anyone that's involved in an intercounty setup, and if you're lucky enough to have that success, I would say that I spent more time with my teammates than I did with my family.
Of course you did.
You used to go to work, no different yourself, go to training, recovery.
Yeah, we might just touch on a small bit about the hurling championship this year. I've had a keen interest in it. I love watching hurling. It's one of my passions. It's 2 big major players in the All-Ireland hurling series in Galway and Tipperary. Just have been really under par this year. Probably down to a little bit of injury, but on the Galway side of things. But for Tipperary, it's a little bit more worrying, I would say. They've been really the whipping boys in Munster, and you don't often see that with the Tipperary side. And I'm just wondering, where's the road back and what has gone wrong?
For Tipperary, it's a funny one, because Liam Cahill and Mikey Bevins are 2 managers and coaches that I would have huge time for. All the teams that they have been associated with have brought massive energy, huge work ethic, and the last 2 years it's looked like, either last year the timing was all wrong in terms of getting the peak at the right time, and 2, this year it just didn't fall for them. If you look at the likes of Offaly this year, Joe McDonagh winners, the amount of work that's been done, say Michael Duigan's after putting a huge structure in place in terms of finances, education, he's getting the right people involved at minor, at senior level, and they're now becoming, there's a buzz around Offaly, and I do think that it has to start at the grassroots and work up. They have found that, not magic bullet isn't the right word, but they have found something that works well for them, and I think that every county is very, very different. There's questions and marks around should the Joe McDonagh winners and losers be going in playing in the qualifier, the 3rd seed? I think absolutely yes. I loved playing against the best teams. I'm sure you were the exact same. Why would you want to not have that opportunity? And I think if you don't expose players to playing against better teams or better oppositions, then how do you know where you ever sit in the bracket or the ladder?
Exactly.
And with Galway, it just felt there was no energy with him. Conor Whelan is still the main scoring threat. And for Henry, is that Henry Shefflin's last game at Galway? I would think so.
Dublin Cork this weekend, huge game Saturday. Well, it's certainly a huge game for Dublin. They've had a sort of a mixed season, got to a Leinster final probably out of nowhere and just didn't perform.
No.
I don't think they're going to be as bad the next day. It's in Thurles, which I actually think suits Dublin a little bit better than Croke Park does.
Yeah.
I think Dublin perform very well in Parnell Park, but as soon as they get into Croke Park, I don't know what it is. It's like a mental block with them. I'm just wondering, where do you see Cork right now? They're the only team this year to beat Limerick. Do you think they're just going to blow Dublin out of the water?
I most certainly don't think they're going to blow Dublin out of the water. Similar to you, I was impressed with Dublin throughout the championship campaign. For long periods in Parnell Park against Kilkenny, they did a huge amount right. Granted, it's a different type of field than playing in Croke Park or Thurles. Then they go to Galway, they turn over Galway, they get themselves in a Leinster final. And then I'm sure they're going to be massively disappointed with that performance. It was completely under par. They've had 2 weeks now to analyse it, to rectify it, and I'm sure they'd be incredibly hurt with that performance. And any sort of team or individual that comes with hurt will typically channel an emotional response, and that's where that could come into play now against Cork on Saturday. Cork got the job done against Offaly. You expected that, but Pat Ryan, I liked it with Pat Ryan in the sense that he wasn't happy afterwards. There was no backclapping. He was pretty annoyed in the sense that we got complacent, we got sloppy, is the word he used. So I'm sure he'll be beating them with that stick during the week to say, if we go out and perform at a similar level, then we're going to be under pressure. What I like about Dublin is they're going to match up athletically. They're incredibly athletic. They have very, very good ball winners in Chris Cummey in the half-back line, Donald Burke, Sutcliffe. And I think they're going to pose huge questions for Cork and Thurles. I don't think it's going to be plain sailing at all. It will be incredibly close for 60 minutes, and I think that Cork will hopefully come out the right side of it and progress on to an All-Ireland semi-final.